In today's tutorial, we'll complete the closure of our skirt by sewing a hook and eye and snaps and use fabric buttons as a pretty and unique embellishment.
This breezy summer skirt includes a ruffle, hand sewing closures, and fabric button. You'll learn some couture sewing techniques that are actually very easy, along with some very simple pattern making.
I recommend making a practice pattern first. Let's begin the final closure of the skirt. First, your skirt closure will be a lapped edge, which means that one side of the waistband will lap over top of the other. We can see here how I sewed the snaps in place and evenly distributed them, but the snaps are still showing through to the other side of the fabric. Often when you sew snaps on a garment, you have a fold of fabric such as on a shirt, and you can hide the snap underneath. But what do you do when you only have one piece of fabric and you don't want the snap to show through to the other side? Well, don't worry, because we're going to cleverly fix that in the last part of this video. You can see that the Mona skirt has an interesting and unique closure. We'll be using a hook and eye and snaps instead of a zipper. You'll be amazed at how easy that is. Remember that in part 4, you already prepared the skirt closure. You stitched a double rolled hem at the side of the ruffle and the side of the skirt. Using a measuring tape, pins, and tailor's chalk, you marked where to put the snaps and the hook and eye. You measured and marked all the places you would like to put the snaps, evenly distributing them. You made sure to leave enough room for a slit from the bottom of the skirt to your last snap. Let's take a moment to review how to sew the snaps. Here are the tools you'll need: snap closures, a pin cushion, tailor's wax, a seam ripper, a threader, a measuring gauge or tape measure, snips, and a needle and thread and tailor's chalk. For extra strength, you can use sewing wax like this beeswax that I have here. You'll find that the closures are much stronger if you do. Here you can see how I anchored the thread on the Mona skirt. When I began stitching, I made sure that the snap would cover the knot. Begin by concealing the knot underneath the snap. Ensure it's discreetly tucked away, hidden from sight. Stitch around the snap in each hole, ensuring the stitches remain on the right side of the fabric. This secures the snap in place. You can see how I'm using a lock stitch here to give extra stability. Here's my example for the Mona skirt. Make a knot and snip the thread. Once the first half is in place, use it as a guide to accurately position the other half of the snap. You can also use a pin to position the second half of the snap, as I did here. Sew the top half of the snap in place just as you sewed the bottom half using a lock stitch. Make a knot and snip the thread. When I first created the Mona skirt, I didn't know that I would be putting in snaps and hooks and eyes and buttons. Ooh! Actually, I was in the process of fixing an online pattern that I was making for myself where the measurements were all wrong, and I'd actually cut the material. And you know, if I'd followed my own rule of using a practice pattern beforehand, I would have seen the error a lot sooner.
Oh no!
But in coming up with creative solutions, I actually made my own pretty unique skirt. But once I sewed the snaps, I realized that they still showed through to the other side. So I came up with another unique solution, and that was of using fabric buttons to hide the snaps. And it worked. And I loved the results. But before we get to the fabric buttons, you'll need to sew an optional hook and eye.
Determine the ideal position of the hook on the garment and secure the thread there. Make a couple of tiny stitches. Avoid stitching through the garment's right side. Place the hook on the wrong side of the overlap edge, ensuring its hook is set about 1/8 inch from the edge. Hold it firmly and take a number of stitches. Time to sew the eyelets. These little rings are the key to a successful closure. Position them carefully along the fabric, ensuring they align with the hook on the opposite side. Sew the bar in place using the locking stitch technique we discussed earlier.
Consider fabric weight and tension spots when choosing closures for your Mona skirt. Options include using a snap, a hook and eye with a snap, or 2 hooks and eyes or snaps. For lightweight fabric like mine, a snap handles tension better than a hook and eye. For heavier fabric, consider using a larger hook and eye, similar to those used on trousers.
Now we come to the final stage of the Mona skirt. We're going to create fabric buttons and then sew them right over the snaps as a pretty and unique embellishment. Trust me that once you make fabric buttons, you're going to want to make them again. They are so much fun to make, and you can jazz up many garments with them and even sew them on household items like pillows. So here's how you make fabric buttons. The materials you'll need include paper scissors, a marker pen, buttons, thread, snips, something circular, a folded paper sheet, and a needle and thread. Step 1. Make a practice pattern circle and check to see that the diameter of the circle is correct and that the button will fit well inside the circle. Cut the paper circle out. This is your pattern. Step 2. Measure the button in the fabric circle. Step 3. Sew a running stitch halfway between the button and the edge of the fabric. Leave a tail of thread before you begin stitching. Step 4. Cover the button with the fabric by gently pulling the threads. Then make a knot and wrap the threads around the button shank a few times. Knot once more, and snip the thread. Excellent! You've made your fabric buttons, but you still need to sew them on the garment. You'll see me sewing these onto my Mona skirt in the rest of the video. If you've ever sewn a shank button like this, the procedure for sewing on the fabric button is really similar. Let's compare how to sew a shank button with how you'll sew your fabric button over top of a snap. You'll see how easy it is. Step 5. Sew the fabric button on a garment, measuring from the side of the garment to the side of the button. The fabric button is resting on top of the snap, so it will wobble a bit. When you sew the fabric button on, catch the fabric from the button with your needle, then sew it to the fabric on the garment. It's easiest if you stop the video right now to read my instructions on the screen. Use a lock stitch to make a knot, then snip the threads. Here's your new fabric button, and you can't even see the snap. And here's how your fabric buttons will look on the Mona skirt once you're done. Congratulations, you've done it! The Mona skirt can really fit anyone, and all you have to do is measure whoever you are sewing it for, just like I did for myself, and just like I did for a much smaller demo skirt. And that means you can sew this skirt for any person of any size and any age. It's that versatile. And you can make the skirt for a child or even a doll. I really want to thank those of you who have been following along each week as I publish each part of this tutorial. If you haven't seen the other parts, there's a whole playlist for you, which includes every part of the Mona skirt tutorial, along with extra videos on the sewing technique we used. So wait for that, it'll come up at the end of the video. And I really hope that you would drop me a comment below to tell me how your Mona skirt is going.
It's Robin from Sheer Fun Sewing. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. I've also left some links below. Thanks again. Bye for now.